Hey guys, welcome back to Fix It Friday. So this week we're going to be looking at the Sega Genesis Model 3. So this is the final version of the Sega Genesis that was released in North America, and it's a really cool console. I mean, I love the fact that it's really small like this. Just has a nice form factor and look to it. But one thing that's worth noting is that there are a lot of drawbacks to this console. So one big one is that it only outputs mono sound. And then there's a whole bunch of functionality that's missing. So you can't play Sega Master System on this, or 32X, or Sega CD. The Game Genie features don't work, like if you use one of those carts. And then if you take a game like Virtua Racing, which has an enhancement chip, it won't work on this console. Thankfully, though, we can remedy all of those issues with a few simple modifications. And then today, we're also going to go ahead and install this. This is the triple bypass, and I've showed this on the channel before. So what this does is it bypasses the original RGB signal and the sound circuit from the Genesis, and it outputs the highest quality possible for both sound and video. All right, so let's take this thing apart and get started. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to sever all of the audio connections and the RGB. So to do that, we're going to be removing a couple of surface mount components. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them right here. We also need to remove this single electrolytic capacitor, which I'll do. And then finally, I've got to lift the RGB output from the Sony CXA RGB encoder chip. So just these 3 pins right here. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so that's all set. So I'm going to also leave a link in the description of this video, and it references an older modification called the Mega Amp. And I find it very useful because it tells you exactly which components to remove on every single hardware revision of the Sega Genesis. So if you're trying to do a triple bypass yourself and you can't find information, which is actually pretty common, there's not really good documentation of this modification, I think, apart from searching Twitter and searching through forum posts. But if you go to this one particular link I'll send you, it tells you exactly what components to remove, and that does make your job easier. I'm also going to go ahead and clear these legs. I just wanted to clip the electrolytic capacitor off just to make it easier. All right, so I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll continue with the mod. Okay, so now we're on the underside of the board, and we're going to start making some steps to re-enable RGB. So here's the triple bypass board. It's going to sit right over here. But as you can see, it's not making a good fit, and that is because there's a whole bunch of points from other things that were soldered on the board that are elevated, and so it just prevents this from making good contact. So before you try to solder this into place, the first thing you've got to do is clip all this extra junk out of the way so that this thing can sit as close to the bottom of the board as possible. The other thing that needs to be done is you have to scrape away at some of the vias that are here on the bottom. So there's one over here, one over here, one over here that I've done already. I'm going to do this one here on camera. It definitely helps to do this under some kind of magnification because, as you can see, these vias are surrounded by ground. So if you do this without being careless or just being too far away to know what's going on, you can scrape up the ground and the signal that you actually care about. And then if you solder on a wire, you might be bridging ground to, let's just say, sync or to red, green, or blue, and then when you try the modification, you'll be missing a color or no sync or something. So do this under magnification. It's definitely a lot easier. So right over here, here's the final via that I need to scrape away. I chose this one because I can do it pretty easily. So you see, I just take the tip of a scalpel here and just run it along the via. And when it's all nice and shiny, like that, it should be good to go. So let's go ahead and trim all this extra stuff and get started. Okay, so we've got a fair number of things installed right now. So we have 32x sound, that's the left and right channels, and those are coming from ports, the cartridge slot B1 and B3, and then those just go to these pads called X left and X right, respectively. Here's our RGB Sync, and so I've color-coded it to make it easier for you, and these are those 4 vias that we exposed earlier on. And then finally, the only other things to mention is that there's a whole bunch of jumpers that you need to set. So those are all here, and then these two as well. These instructions are located on the back of the PCB. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that when you solder in these connections, you've got to make sure that there's plenty of solder applied and that you leave your iron there for a decent amount of time. The reason why is that you want to make sure that there's an actual solid, stable connection here between the pins and the PCB. If not, then you might be losing, I don't know, a color or sound or something. So it's really critical that these connections are solid. All right, so now let's go ahead and flip the board over and do some work on that side. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable the PSG sound for Sega Master System, and we're also going to do the standard Genesis left and right channel audio. So we're going to do that over here. So this is left channel Sega Genesis audio, right channel audio, and then this over here is PSG. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to run those underneath the controller port over here, and then bring it to the underside, and then wire it up to the respective pads here on the triple bypass. Okay, so now we're basically at the final step of completing this mod, and so basically what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to solder a few wires from the cartridge slot over here to the main chip, which is actually called the GOAC. It's not a custom ASIC. So this is, you know, a little bit tricky, but not as bad as it looks. So if you see here, I'm tilting up the cartridge slot, and you can see there's access to the pins right over here. And so coming from the left, this is pin B1, and then they go all the way over here to pin B32. So there's a list of which pins you need to solder to, and that's actually on Retro RGB's site. So I'll link that in the description as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some solid core Kynar wire. So this stuff is really thin, and it's not stranded, so it helps with this kind of stuff. And I'm going to solder wires to various places on the cartridge slot. And then from there, I'm going to be connecting them up to the GOAC. And I think it's maybe 8 wires in total. I think it's going to be a little bit too difficult to film this on camera, so I'm just going to probably do this off camera. But one other thing to mention too is that I've switched over from a chisel tip, which is what I normally use, to this finer tip. This will just allow me to get in here and not potentially solder, you know, a wire onto 2 of these pins. I want to be as clean and precise as possible. All right, so I'll be back in a second and I'll show you guys what I did. Okay, so I'm sorry I wasn't able to show this to you guys, but it's just too difficult to really capture on film. But at least now I can kind of show you the end result. So yeah, if I tilt back the cartridge slot over here, you can see the various places that I've soldered to. And again, I have the listing of exactly what to do from that Retro RGB link. So yeah, you just go ahead and solder your wires here, and then I used a microscope and got each one of the Kynar wires soldered down onto the GOAC chip. You can see I, did some cable management because like these two have quite a long distance to go, so I routed them underneath the chip just to kind of secure them so they're not going to go anywhere. And I kept the leads as short as I needed to, just so that they're not like, taking up space or have the potential of getting caught on something. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. We should be all ready to go. So here's the backside, and you can see I added a little bit of Kapton tape here, just to hold this down because gravity is going to be pulling this, away from the board. So yeah, we're basically good to go. I'm just going to remove the bottom RF shield, reassemble, and let's test this thing out. Okay, so we're ready to start a test, and of course I picked the most absurd combination of things ever to test on this thing. So we've got the Game Genie connected up, and then Sonic and Knuckles, and then we're using the lock-on component of Sonic and Knuckles attached to Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So this should totally work on a normal Sega Genesis, but this would not have worked on an original stock Genesis 3 because it doesn't have Game Genie functionality. But now it should, and the RGB should be better than ever before. All right, that's a good start. Nice. All right, so it totally sees the Game Genie and it's working. Now let's just see if we got the Sonic and Knuckles with Sonic 2 going. Yep. Wow, that looks really good. Perfect. So yeah, we've got stereo sound, we've got Sega Game Genie functionality, and I still need to test all the other stuff, but that should be working as well. So yeah, this triple bypass modification is done, and it really makes the Genesis 3 just as good as the Model 1 and the Model 2. So if you own one of these, I highly recommend this modification because it really makes the system even better than it ever was. Alright, so that's it for this week. If you guys like this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel. I put out videos every Friday, and then of course, if you've got a console that needs to be modified or repaired, you can always reach me directly at oneuprestorations.com. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.